Hello students, so I welcome you to the first session of the February month. So as I told you in the last session of January 2 that remaining 4 sessions of January and February and the March, we'll have some specific discussion, for example discussions on Basel, discussion on insolvency and bankruptcy code. So this particular session focuses on the Basel norms, right? Whatever important from our syllabus perspective and some previous year questions. Then we'll discuss some recapitalization of the PSBs, whatever relevant for our exam perspective, right? Then we will focus on recapitalization of Exim Bank is also in the news because the government has recently done that. And finally we'll discuss crowding out effect, right? Because one of the outcomes of the recapitalization is this crowding out effect. And in process we will discuss some of the things related to these things, for example DSIPs and all this, right? So it was in the news that Basel 3 norms have been deferred by January 2023. Okay, because of the COVID-19 they have decided, okay, that we will follow these norms by 2023. Now it's been delayed, so that we'll understand Basel's right from the start. So the story starts with Bank of the International Settlement. So it's an international organization comprises of the central banks of the 60 countries, the headquartered in Basel, right? So from this institution comes a committee, that is the Basel Committee on the Banking Supervision. So the task of this particular committee is to make sure that the banking system all around the world, or at least of the partner countries, they remain solvent during the time of the financial stress. So whenever the financial stress is there, the banks remain solvent. Okay, so it comprises of 27 countries and the European Union, headquartered obviously in the Basel. So they have come up with three sort of norms, Basel Accords. So this is Basel 1 in 1988, Basel 2 in 2004, and Basel 3 in 2011. Now Basel 3 has a context, in 2008 crisis, global financial crisis, and in that crisis started with one of the bank collapse, and that is why Basel 3 has the toughest norms out of the three. So they require the banks to have enough capital so as to serve as a cushion in the times of the financial stress, okay, so that they do not collapse. Now it also stems from the fact of the contagion effect. Okay, so what is contagion effect? That means when the bank of one country collapses, big bank for example, then the other it not only affects that particular country but also started affecting the other country. So it is such of a domino effect. So impact of one leads to the impact on the other, right? So before starting the technical details, let us discuss two questions. So in 2007 and 2015 questions have been asked. For example, Basel 2 one was there. They have asked it is related to which of the following. So very easy question. So if you know this, very easy for measuring adequacy of the bank's capital. Now with respect to Basel, questions have been on a very relatively easy scale. Okay. So the next time question comes, you can expect question to be relatively tough. For example, a question on bank capitalization has been asked recapitalization, and it was a relatively tough question. We'll discuss that. Then in 2015 question has been asked, the Basel 3 Accords are in the news. What are these? So very easy, improving the banking sector's ability to deal with the financial and economic stress and improve the risk management. So very easy part, very easy part of it, right? So before understanding a few technical details, let us understand this basic diagram. So when a bank starts, right? When a bank starts, it has, just like a company, when it has to start, it needs to have some money, right? So capital you invest in the bank. So the capital, how the company starts, whether in the form of the debt you take in the form of the bonds or in the form of the equity. Equity means the ownership of the bank. For example, you are 50% ownership, so the other 50% who is coming up, he'll bring up the money. So banks also have this before starting their operation. So they have some capital in the form of the debts, in the form of the equity, right? Then when they start the operation, so they have deposits of the people. So deposits of the people comes in FD and demand deposit, time deposit. Then when the deposits come, then they start giving away the loans before fulfilling these requirement, cash reserve ratio, statutory liquidity ratio, right? So these requirements they fulfill. So they give some good loans, some bad loans. Bad loans means the loans which later become the NPAs. And this is high quality liquid asset they have to keep. We'll discuss that. QLA, what is this, right? So these are the assets finally. Now the bank has what is called a risk weighted assets. So these are the assets they have. Now as I told you, some loans are good. For example, loans given to for example, the money they give to the government, for example, right? So that money is a that will not never be faulted. Government will always pay the money back because it is sovereign. Or to the good people, for example, those who have good credit returning history. But some loans can have potential to become bad loans. For example, loan given to the big infrastructure company, right? They give a good interest back. For example, if an infrastructure project is successful, they will give good money back. However, it may be possible because of the financial cycle of the business, they will not be able to return their money at a time. So there will be some portion that loan will become a toxic asset or a NPA. Hence, if the total asset is 100, if you are assigning the risk weight to it, that it is more risky, it is less risky, so finally you'll come up with a figure that is risk weighted assets. Now we don't have to get into the technical details how this is calculated. Okay, this is average, weighted average kind of thing, that is how it is calculated. But they commit with the value of the what is the total assets including the risk they carry. Okay, so this is the risk weighted assets, right? Okay, now first norm of the Basel, and most importantly, says that we have to keep some minimum capital with respect to the risk weighted assets ratio. So we have to maintain this ratio. So we have to maintain this capital ratio divided by the risk weighted asset, and the Basel says that it should be 9%, and this is called the capital adequacy ratio. Very easy. So the capital divided by the risk weighted assets. Okay, and now capital is divided into two tiers: tier 1 capital, tier 2 capital. Not very important internal classification, but tier 1 is called the core capital, tier 2 is called the supplementary capital. Okay, now what is core capital, supplementary capital? Not very important. Okay, so this is capital adequacy ratio. Getting my point? So this much 9% you should maintain. For that means you are having good operations. For example, you are having good operations, you are getting good deposits, you are having good assets. However, some of your loans can become bad loans because your risk weighted assets are high. When risk weighted assets are high, then you have to maintain corresponding capital. Okay, for example, someone bank run situation happens. So for example, a bank comes and it shows that we have a lot of NPAs. It comes out in the public that we have a lot of NPAs. So people will come to take out their deposits. Okay, with deposits, we want our deposits back. So you can support it by your capital you have. You do not collapse. Bank does not collapse if it has sufficient cushion in the form of the capital. Getting my point? Right. That is the whole idea of setting up the Basel in the first place. Okay. Right, so let us discuss one question in 2018. The question has been asked: capital adequacy ratio is the amount of the bank have to maintain in the form of their own funds to offset any loss the bank occurs if the account holder fails to repay the dues. And it is right. It is the amount they have to maintain in the form of their own funds. Right. So this much they have to maintain by their own in the capital form. It is decided by each individual bank. This is wrong. No, it is not decided by each individual bank. It is decided by RBI. In our country, it is decided by RBI. And globally, these committees, the Basel committee set up the norm. Okay, 9% it should do. Right. Then RBI, it is reinforced in a particular country by its own central bank. Okay. Right. So I hope you get the question. Okay, fine. So you have to maintain this 9%. Just remember this story that you have to maintain this 9% of the capital adequacy ratio. Please remember that because we will use it when we will discuss the recapitalization process. Okay, then what about this high quality liquid asset? So from the name itself, high quality liquid asset. So a asset in the form the bank has to maintain in the form of the liquid. Why? For example, the situation of the bank run happens. So they define it. Okay, just let's first discuss what is high quality liquid asset, then we'll discuss that. So what is included in that? So cash, including the cash reserve, that you can convert into liquid uh, quickly, right? For example, some of the loans that you have given to big infrastructure company, that is not a liquid money. That loan may come, that loan may not come, but there must be some money with the bank in the form of the very liquid form. So some sort of cash which in excess of the CRR, government security which is in excess of SLR, right? Some marketable securities which are guaranteed by sovereigns, public sector entities, and multilateral development banks. So these are the securities and the cash, if the bank has, they are known as the high quality liquid asset. Okay, so whenever the bank is in the stress, so bank can use this money quickly, readily sold, and use this money as a collateral, right? Now we understand this liquidity coverage ratio, because in economics, what is the problem? The problem is every concept is related. So whenever we try to explain, because the problem I'm facing in this current affair class is also because every concept is related. So if you have to explain one concept, you cannot stop that concept. You cannot stop at one point. You have to explain it to the basic, coming to the core and the basics, right? So what is liquidity coverage ratio? So it says that total net cash flow amount in the 30 days for a bank. For example, a bank which expects in the coming 30 days this much cash will go out of the bank. So bank has to maintain this much cash in the form of the high quality liquid asset. Okay, and this is known as the liquidity coverage ratio. So if they maintain this much high quality liquid asset, that is enough to pay for the 30-day cash outflow, the liquidity coverage ratio will be 1 or 100%. Very easy. So if liquidity coverage ratio is 100%, that means the bank has enough high quality liquid asset, so that whenever the problem, any financial stress come, so it can give the 30-day money immediately. Okay, so it is kind of a stress test that aims to anticipate market-wide shocks and make sure that financial institution poses suitable capital preservation to ride out any short-term liquidity disruptions. For example, depositor comes and they start asking money, so the bank should have some sort of liquid money at their own disposal. Okay, right. So this is being done from the RBI. So from January 2019, the RBI is enforcing 100% liquidity coverage ratio for all the banks, right? So from 2015, they started monitoring it, and they have said, okay, we have to phase-wise increase it. And from January 1, 2019, they are saying that this much money you should hold. Okay, and these, you can say, as these norms are getting tightened, it is one of the reasons why the situation of the banks in India is facing problem. Not only this NPA problem, they are part of it, right? But also these provisional requirement, this Basel norms and all these things, that is why banks are facing a big problem, right? So we have discussed capital adequacy ratio, right? We have discussed the leverage liquidity coverage ratio. Now next is capital conservation buffer. This is a next requirement by the Basel, right? So what they say, they said that the mandatory capital the financial institution required to hold above the minimum regulatory requirement. So we have 9% of the capital adequacy ratio. They are saying that you have to keep X% extra for the CCB. This is capital conservation buffer. Okay, so they define it like a buffer of 2.5% of the risk weighted asset in the form of the common equity. You have to keep this much for the, and this is over and above the capital adequacy ratio. So you can see more financial repression of the banks. However, this is very important. Now why it is there? It is very logically they have said. Now we also have instance of it. So this is the financial cycle, right? GDP goes up and down, the normal process. So when sorry, so when the GDP is at its peak here, so what happens, you can see in India from 2004 to 2009 scenario, our GDP growth was even to the double digit figures were there. So banks went overboard and they lend a lot of money, right? So they lend a lot of money to the corporates. So corporates become what economic survey says, over leveraged corporates. They've taken so much money from the banks that they cannot repay. So banks also under their enthusiasm gave a lot of money, did not see this requirement, capital to RWA requirement. Okay. So what they say, this capital conservation buffer says that during this time, okay, so during this time you have to keep some money extra as a buffer in the capital form, and that capital form goes beyond the capital adequacy ratio, plus this much money you should keep extra, right? So this is called counter cyclic buffer, so that when the situation of depression comes, the bank should not face a lot of stress, right? Because at this time loans will not be coming back, nobody is going to pay you loan back. For example, what is happening after 2013, the corporates which got so much loan in from 2004 and 5, corporates got a too much loan from this, and 2013 they are not able to pay. Twin balance sheet problem, one balance sheet of the bank, one balance sheet of the corporates, and in between what was the crisis? 2008 crisis. Okay, it's very easy to understand. So this time bank lend a lot, everything optimism was there, okay, we will pay the money back because economy is booming and everything. Then this crisis occurred, then I'm not able to pay. So what the Basel says that at this time you have to put extra money so as to make sure that even if any strike happens, you do not face problem at this juncture. So you have to make some extra provisioning here. Okay, right. So you can see it in, obviously the point is, you can say when you have money here, you are putting it for the safety. So you are prioritizing safety over investment. That is fine. But this is how we mitigate the risk. So it will increase the resilience of the banks to losses, reduce excessive underestimated exposure, and restrict the distribution of capital. Right? These microprudential instruments limit the systemic risk in the financial system, so that in the long run, our financial system remains stable. Okay, right. So this is all, I believe. We are I hope you understand this, right? Next, we understand this DSIBs, that is domestically systematic important banks. So what are these? These are the descriptions given by the RBI. First of all, remember these are given by RBI, not global authority. Global authority, that is different. Okay, we will see that, which are too big to fall. Okay, that is too big to fall means if they fall, then everything collapses. Not everything means, for example, if SBI goes down, then it will create a lot of domino and contagion effect on the whole economy, right? That means these banks are too big to fail. They cannot fail in the economy. Hence, the government says you have to keep additional capital requirement. Apart from this capital adequacy ratio, apart from this capital conservation buffer, you have to do some extra capital you must keep because you are too big to fail. So currently these three banks are there: SBI, ICICI and HDFC. Okay, so they have to maintain a higher capital as compared to the other banks. We will see also. So these banks are also not in the same league. They also define the banks in the bucket form. Bucket means basically the higher the bucket, that means more important you are. Okay, and that means higher the requirement of the capital. So you can see SBI has to keep around 6.6% extra of the RWA as the capital. Okay, so 9 plus 2.5 plus 0.6, some sort of this. Okay, right. And ICICI and HDFC are relatively less important than SBI, but both are in the DSIBs. They have to keep 0.2% of their equity in the form as percentage of the RWA. Now globally, this is the Indian version. Globally, you know this, these are GSIBs. They are by the G20 Financial Stability Board. We have discussed Financial Stability Board, if you remember, when we were discussing about FSDC, Financial Stability and Development Council. When we were discussing, we discussed about the Financial Stability Board, right? So yeah, so these are GSIBs. Now you can see GSIBs, what is the requirement? If you are bucket 5 in GSIBs, you have to keep 3.5% additional buffer. For example, JP Morgan, you can see they have to keep 2.5% additional capital. Very important bank. Citigroup, HSBC, then Bank of America. India is not in league because our bucket 5 is 1%. And that is why we have created our own list. because we cannot tell our banks to maintain this much capital in the with themselves. Then what they will lend, what profit they will get, right? And that is the problem, right? So we have understood this. Now we understand the issue of the recapitalization of the PSB. Now we have understood that capital adequacy ratio we have to maintain 9%, but the banks do not have this much money, do not have this much capital. Now the banks, as Basel says that you have to maintain this much money, now the pressure is on the banks to raise its capital, right? Now the bank has two options to raise its capital, whether they can issue float more bonds, get some money in the debt, or they can get some money in the liquidity. Very easy. However, both of sides, they are facing problem. For example, now banks have the context, you understand, NPAs are rising, right? Every day if we see the situation, okay, this bank is creating this situation. So do you think any investor will feel that PSBs are not profitable, they will not give dividend, why we should invest in the equity? So this option is gone. Then they say PSB to offer high interest rate if debt has to be given. That say no, this is also not there, because we do not want to do the debt. Because for PSBs for public sector banks to attract investor in the bonds, they have to offer very high interest rate, 20%, 30% interest rate. Nobody will take otherwise. And this much money they cannot pay. How can they pay 20% interest rate? Right? So the PSBs have to offer higher interest rate because very risky situation is there. So that means the banks on their own are not able to raise this much capital which is required by the Basel. Getting my point? So they are able to raise this much capital and this much is required by the Basel, 9%. Now who will bridge this gap? The government will bridge this gap. Government will help the banks. Okay. Why the government will help? Because the PSBs are the government is one of the equity holder of the PSBs. Right. So the government decided Mission Indradhanush, it was called 2015. Mission Indradhanush. So Mission Indradhanush, government said, okay, we will facilitate the recapitalization. So over the period of 4 years, they have pushed 70,000 crores through the budgetary support. Okay. And then 1,35,000 crores will be raised through bonds, recapitalization bonds. Okay. Right. So this much money will be raised. This much recapitalization will be done of the, in fact is being done of the banks. Actually not in a current affair, it's an old affair, but we are for example we are discussing it, that is why I am discussing it. So what government said? Government said, okay, we will raise the bond in our name. So the investor will get the guarantee of the government. Investor will not get the guarantee of the banks. Investor has nothing to do with the banks. In fact, investor has to do with the bank. Government will raise the bond and government will give this money to the bank in the form of the equity. Okay. So in this way they will infuse the capital in the banks. I hope you understand it. Right. So the government, we will issue bonds and use that money to infuse the liquidity in the banks. Hence we will recapitalize the banks. Okay. Right. What are the other steps being taken for the recapitalization and helping the these banks out? So privatization of the weak banks, so that infusion of the capital and equity happens. Then merger of the small banks also there, so that efficiency is brought upon and risk weighted assets are reduced. Okay, when for example we have to maintain this ratio, right? Capital divided by the risk weighted assets. So finally if we reduce this risk weighted asset, this is also good. For example, we have read about project Sashakt, isn't it? So that is, for example, many of the processes have been done to reduce the NPA problem of India. So one hand we are improving the capital, increasing the capital, and on the other hand we are reducing the RWA. Okay. Now you can see this recapitalization is not a new thing, right? From there you can see project Indradhanush setting up in 25,000 crore. But recapitalization every year, some sort of recapitalization happen, 1,900 crore, 1,200, some money is being there. Now you can see this is not consistent. For example, 1,900, then reduce 1,200, then 20,000, then 12,000, then 12,000, 14,000, then 7,000. So not any steady rate recapitalization has been done. Okay. Now this question has been asked in 2018. It's a very tough question because this data comes from the CAG report. Just one second. This data comes from the CAG report, right? And everybody is not expected to read the CAG report. So for the example, question was, with reference to the governments of the public sector banks in India, consider the following. Capital infusion in the public sector bank by the government of India has steadily increased in the last decades. It is right? Answer is no. And obviously it was given a steadily increase, and that is why it was a bummer. From there you can guess it. Right, to put public sector banks in order, the merger of the state bank with the parent bank has been done. Yes, you can say. So option B is right. Okay, official key also says that option B was there. Right, next we're going to discuss Exim Bank. It was in the news because the government has infused 6,000 crores of the money through recapitalization bond. Same process through this being done, the recapitalization of the PS being done. So what is this Exim? This is the AIFI, All India Financial Institutions, right? It was raised in Statutory Act by 1982 for the Act of Parliament as an apex financial institution for the financing facility promoting India's international trade. From the name itself, Export-Import Bank. They're regulated by the RBI, right? So we have read about financial, we have read this chart, right? So in this chart, they are here, Exim Bank, okay? All India Financial Institutions. In fact, we have read about NABARD, we have read about NHB, we have not read about SIDBI because it was not in news, but we have read about NABARD and NHB, and today we read about Exim Bank. Okay, so many of the things from our static things, these are all part of your static syllabus, economics. So we have covered a lot of things. All right, the last thing we're going to discuss is crowding out effect. So what is crowding out effect? So very easy. For example, government has issues recapitalization bond. Right, so government wants investor to invest in this. Okay, now investor are this much only. Now I have to make a better diagram. So investors are this much. These many investors are there. Those who want to invest, they have two options. First, second. These are corporates. These is government. Now the government increases its borrowing from the market through, for example, one of the example is recapitalization bonds. So the investor starts investing here. When they start investing here, obviously majority of the investor, if they start investing here, for the corporates, the problem increases. So they have two options. Whether they increase the interest rate on their bond so that they attract investor more, or they do not raise the bond itself. They do not raise the money from the market. Okay. And this is called the crowding out effect. So crowding out is being done. And this is the reason, one of the reasons why, because of the government borrowing, the corporate bond market is not developed. In fact, we have discussed Khan Committee recommendations with respect to that, if you remember previously. Okay, so this is crowding out effect. Very easy. So situation when the increased interest rate leads to reduction in the private investment spending, such that it dampens the initial increase in the total investment spending. Don't read this. For example, economic theory arguing that rising public sector spending drives down or even eliminates the private sector spending. So the corporate, even it cannot raise money. If it cannot raise money, how it will invest? Right? And this is why the problem is done. And especially when the government increases its borrowing. And that is seen, we have seen with the recapitalization bond. Okay. Right. Right. It's been argued that high fiscal deficits, so it leads to higher fiscal deficit and other problems. But crowding out effect itself has a big problem because the corporates cannot raise the money. When they increase the bond interest rate, then their profitability decreases. When their profitability decreases, then their more expansion is not there. When expansion is not there, then employment is not there. And these are the problems they face. With this, we finish our session. Let us quickly revise what we have done. So we started with the discussion on the BIS, Banking for the International Settlement. Then one of the committees is this Basel Committee on the Banking Supervision. Then we discussed minimum capital to risk weighted ratio. This is called capital adequacy ratio. One question has also been asked. Please try to understand this diagram, right? If you understand this diagram, then everything is very easy. Then one of the forms assets being kept in, that is high quality liquid assets. Why this is kept? To maintain the liquidity coverage ratio. Then we discussed about capital conservation buffer as well. Then we read about DSIPs and what are the requirements for the DSIPs. DSIPs are the Indian versions of the GSIPs. Then we discussed about the recapitalization of PSB and how the process of the recapitalization of the bonds being done. I have discussed that much in that much capacity which is relevant for our examination, or if you have read it before, because all these are now part of your static economy. Wherever you read economy from, static part, and this is part of it, right? So then we have discussed about Exim Bank, and then finally we read about the crowding out effect. Okay, so with this we finish our session. So first session of February being done. Quickly we'll finish our February 2nd session, then March 1, March 2. Okay, then see you in the next class. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.